All right, so today we're diving into the world of satellite internet, specifically Starlink Maritime. They've just announced some pretty big changes to their pricing plans as of April 17th, 2025. And luckily, we have some insights from Concord Marine Electronics. They are the experts down in South Beach. Now, you might be thinking, hold on, I don't own a yacht. Why should I care about this? But trust me, this is about more than just fancy boats.
It is.
This is about how technology is changing, how companies are adapting, and what it could mean for all of us, in terms of the future of how we connect. So first, a little backstory. Imagine you're out on the ocean, miles from shore, and suddenly you need to send an important email. Or, let's be real, you want to stream the latest episode of your favorite show. That's where Starlink Maritime comes in. They use a network of satellites to beam internet access to boats, no matter where they are in the world.
It really is a game changer for anyone who needs to be able to rely on their internet connection at sea.
Commercial fishing vessels.
Research expeditions, and yes, even those luxury yachts.
Exactly. But as with any new technology, there are always challenges. And one of the biggest for satellite internet has always been how to provide a service that's reliable, but keep the cost reasonable. And that brings us to these new pricing plans. So Starlink used to have these unlimited data plans for boats that were docked at marinas. Sounds pretty good at first glance, right?
It is.
They also had what they called a priority data option, which was $2 per gigabyte. Basically, you could pay extra to get faster speeds when the network was busy.
Those plans were really appealing, especially for people who used a lot of data.
Yeah.
But as more people started using Starlink Maritime, those unlimited plans, they probably started putting a strain on the network.
That makes sense. It's like rush hour on a highway. If too many cars are trying to use the same lanes, everything slows down. So what's changed with these new plans? What does the after picture look like? Well, according to a blog post from Concord Marine Electronics, Starlink has gotten rid of those unlimited dockside plans. And that $2 per gigabyte priority data option, gone too. Now it's a flat $1 per gigabyte. And you have to buy your data in chunks, either 50 gigabytes or 500 gigabytes. There's also a monthly fee, $75 for their Starlink local plan, which covers you if you're staying close to the shore, or $150 per month for their Starlink global plan if you're planning to head out into the open ocean.
It's a pretty big change. And even though it seems pretty simple at first, there's some interesting consequences here. I think the biggest is that Starlink is moving away from those super heavy data users. Those unlimited plans were great if you wanted to stream movies all day long, but in the long run, it wasn't really sustainable for them.
And I bet it also made it harder to guarantee everyone consistent speeds. I mean, if a few users are using up all the bandwidth, it's going to slow things down for everyone else.
Absolutely. So it seems like these new plans are a way for them to manage that demand better and make sure everyone gets a connection they can rely on.
Yeah.
But it does make you think, who are these plans actually designed for?
That's a great point. I mean, if you're only using the internet for simple things, like checking email or for navigation, you can probably make those gigabyte blocks last a while. But if you're the kind of person who needs constant high-speed internet access, even while you're out at sea, these changes could get expensive.
For sure. And it's not just about the cost. It makes you think about internet access in a different way. Is it a luxury, something you pay a premium for? Or is it becoming more like a utility, something we expect to have access to no matter where we are?
I think that is the question here. And it's something we're going to explore more in this deep dive. What's happening with Starlink Maritime? It's just one example of this larger trend, the race to make sure everyone has reliable internet access, even in the middle of the ocean. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's focus on something I found particularly interesting. Remember how we mentioned Concord Marine Electronics? The experts down in South Beach, they specialize in installing and maintaining Starlink systems on yachts. And one thing they really emphasize is the importance of professional installation.
That's so important. Setting up satellite internet on a boat, it's a lot more complicated than just plugging in a router at home.
Right.
There's just so much that can go wrong, especially when you're dealing with a moving environment like the ocean.
Yeah, I can imagine the last thing you'd want is to lose your internet connection in the middle of a storm just because you didn't install your antenna correctly. So what kind of challenges are we talking about here? What makes boat installations so tricky?
Well, first of all, you have to make sure that antenna has a clear view of the sky. No masts, no sails, no other equipment blocking it. And then you've got the motion of the boat constantly rocking and swaying. That can really mess with the signal strength. And then you got to think about the marine environment, salt spray, humidity, vibrations, all things that can damage delicate electronic equipment. So having someone who knows what they're doing is absolutely crucial.
Yeah, it sounds like you need a really specialized skill set, like a marine electrician, but one who also knows about satellite technology. Speaking of which, Concord Marine Electronics also talk about how important ongoing support is. They're not just there for the initial installation, they offer continuous service to make sure everything is working properly.
That's really smart. They're setting themselves up as the go-to experts in this very specific market. And that kind of support, it's a big selling point.
It's like having a tech support hotline that's available 24/7, no matter where you are in the world. That peace of mind, I bet that's worth a lot, especially for someone who really relies on that internet connection for work, for communication, or even just for entertainment while they're out at sea. But,
What's really interesting to me is how Concord Marine Electronics is adapting to this new technology. They saw a need, and they're filling it, becoming the experts in a field that's only going to grow.
And that brings us back to the bigger picture. We started by talking about pricing changes for internet on boats, but we're really talking about the future of how we connect.
That's exactly it. Starlink Maritime is just one piece of the puzzle. As satellite internet technology gets better and more affordable, it has the potential to connect people and communities in ways we never thought possible.
So, even though we might not all be yacht owners, what we're learning from Starlink Maritime and companies like Concord Marine Electronics, it's relevant to all of us, because in a world where we're all relying on digital connections, understanding these trends and adapting to these changes, it's crucial for all of us. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. It really does make you think about how we use data. Now that we don't have those unlimited options, it forces you to really think about how much data you actually need.
It's like going from an all-you-can-eat buffet to a menu where you have to pick and choose your dishes carefully. So let's say you're planning a week-long trip down the coast, just hypothetically, of course. How would you even begin to guess how much data you would actually need? Would you be streaming music the whole time? What about video calls back home? Downloading those big navigation charts?
Those are all good questions. And it's something anyone thinking about using Starlink Maritime will have to consider. If you're just using it for navigation and communication, those 50 gigabyte blocks might be enough. But if you're planning on streaming movies or working remotely, you can use that up pretty quickly.
It's like planning a road trip and trying to figure out how many snacks to bring. You don't want to run out halfway there. But seriously, this whole thing about data limits, it's kind of strange to think about again, isn't it? We're so used to having unlimited data on our phones and at home.
It is. It makes you wonder if this is a sign of what's to come. What if this is the future? As satellite internet becomes more common, will we start to see more of these tiered pricing structures instead of unlimited plans?
That's a great question. And it's not just about satellite internet either. We're already seeing something similar with mobile data plans. Some carriers are offering plans with different data speeds and priority access.
It's all about managing the network, making sure everyone has a good experience. But it also means that people who can afford to pay more get a better service.
That's the downside, for sure. It could end up creating a digital divide, where some people have this fast lane on the information superhighway, and others are stuck in the slow lane. Okay, but let's get back to Starlink Maritime specifically. One thing I'm still a little confused about is the difference between the Starlink local plan and the Starlink global plan. They both have the same data options, but the global plan is twice as expensive. What makes them different? And why would someone choose one over the other?
That's a good question. It all comes down to coverage. Starlink Local is designed for use close to shore, within a certain distance. So if you're just sailing along the coast or staying within a specific region, that plan should be fine.
That's like about having a local versus long distance plan for your phone.
Exactly. But if you're planning to cross oceans or go to more remote areas, you'll need that Starlink global plan. It works anywhere in the world, even in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
So if you're sailing around the world, that global plan is essential. No more hunting for Wi-Fi in port or those crazy roaming charges. You've got your own internet connection wherever you go.
That's the idea. It's like having your own portable Wi-Fi hotspot. That works anywhere, but like you said, it comes at a price.
There's always a trade-off, convenience and reliability versus cost. But let's zoom out again for a second. When you think about how satellite internet technology is changing, what other developments do you think we might see in the next few years?
One of the most exciting things is that there are more companies getting involved in satellite internet. It's not just Starlink anymore. Companies like Amazon and OneWeb, they're launching their own constellations of satellites. More competition usually means lower prices.
That's great news. It reminds me of the early days of the internet, or even mobile phones. All that competition leads to innovation. and makes technology more accessible for everyone.
Exactly. And as these satellite networks become more powerful, we can expect to see even faster speeds and lower latency. Imagine streaming HD videos or even playing online games with no lag, even in the middle of the ocean.
That's incredible. It sounds like we're on the verge of a truly connected world, where geography doesn't even matter anymore. But with all this amazing technology, it's important to remember that there could be some downsides. What are some of the potential problems we should be thinking about as satellite internet becomes more common?
One of the biggest concerns is space debris. All those satellites being launched into orbit. It increases the risk of collisions and creates more space junk. And that debris, it's a threat to other satellites and even spacecraft.
So we're basically creating a traffic jam in space. It really highlights the need for responsible space exploration and international cooperation to manage those risks.
Absolutely. Another thing to think about is light pollution. All those satellites reflecting sunlight, it can interfere with astronomical observations and disrupt the natural night sky.
It's like someone put a giant disco ball in space.
And of course, there's also the issue of privacy and security. As more of our data travels through those satellite networks, we have to make sure it's protected from hacking and misuse.
Those are all really important points. It really emphasizes the need for careful regulation and ethical considerations. As we move into this new era of satellite connectivity, we can't just embrace new technology without thinking about the consequences.
I completely agree. It's a delicate balance. We need to use technology to make our lives better and connect the world. But we also need to be careful and make sure we're using it responsibly.
Well said. That's a perfect transition. To our final thoughts on this topic, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question to consider. We've talked about satellite internet, the challenges, the opportunities, and the impact it could have on our lives. But what does it all mean for you? How do you see this technology shaping your future? Whether you're a tech enthusiast, a business owner, or just someone who likes staying connected.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about how this technology, that seems like something out of a movie just a few years ago. It's becoming such a big part of our lives. It really is.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about connecting people who are far apart. Satellite internet, it could also help bridge the digital divide, bringing internet access to communities that haven't had it before.
That's a great point. We tend to think of satellite internet as this luxury thing for yachts and global travel. But it can also be used for good. Imagine what it could mean for education, healthcare, economic development in places that don't have access to regular internet.
Exactly. It could change everything for how people in those areas learn, work, connect with the world.
It's like we're making internet access a basic right, no matter where you live.
Yeah. It makes you think about the internet differently, not just as something that's convenient or fun, but as something that's essential for communication, for learning, for opportunity.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And I think that's a perfect way to wrap things up. We started talking about internet prices on boats, but look where we ended up. We've talked about satellite technology, the challenges, the possibilities, and the impact it could have on all of us. What started as a pretty niche topic has turned into this big conversation about the future of how we connect, about what internet access really means, and the things we need to think about as we enter this new digital world.
It has been a really interesting conversation, and I hope it's made you think and maybe even spark some curiosity. Because with any new technology, it's important to be both excited and a little bit